Thanks, everybody. Welcome to Build. I'm your host, Ricky Camilleri. Our next guests are the director and star of the upcoming film, Come to Daddy. It premieres at Tribeca tonight, and it's the story of a man, played by Elijah Wood, who attempts to reconnect with his estranged and potentially disturbed father. Let's take a look. From Come to Daddy, please welcome Elijah Wood and director Ant Timpson.
Hello.
Hello.
Guys, congratulations on this. Really fucked up, really fun.
Oh man, that's a particularly disturbing moment for him.
And can I say, kind of heartfelt movie. I don't want to give anything away, but I really loved watching this movie. It never went in the direction that I expected it to go in, yet it's a setup that is fairly familiar. And then from there, it just goes haywire. So Elijah, what was it like for you? I imagine you got a script. You saw this script and were like, okay, this looks great.
Yeah, I did. I was given the script from Ant. I've known Ant for years, sort of on the genre film circuit in Austin at Fantastic Fest and other festivals. And then we worked together on a film that we produced. We co-produced a film called The Greasy Strangler together, which I highly recommend. I think you've seen it. That's a knowing laugh. And so he sent me this script for...
Particularly if you like Disney movies, you should see The Greasy Strangler.
Yeah, it's definitely...
If you have children, it's a family movie. Gather with the kids.
Don't do that. That's a terrible idea.
No, please do that and tweet at me. Like how it goes. Reaction videos, the whole thing, please.
Jesus. So yeah,
We could just talk about The Greasy Strangler all day.
Totally could.
We should.
So he sent me the script for Come to Daddy that was co-written by Toby Harvard as well, who wrote Greasy Strangler. I think you gave me a little preface that it was based on a personal experience.
I think so.
Perhaps.
Hook you in.
Yeah.
I think I needed some...
But it was a lie. No.
It is.
Yeah, I
based
used my
on
father's
some
death. I was going, I'm going to
truth.
throw that at him and see how he reacts.
And then he included a photo of Skrillex. He's like, this is how I imagine the character of Norval to look. But anyway, so I had pre-existing interest to do anything that Ant was going to do, and I was keen that Ant was going to be directing this film. So I read it and fell in love with it immediately. It was unlike anything I'd really read. It constantly subverted my expectations of where things were going to go. It sort of starts as this, family reunion story about a guy who's been estranged from his father for 30 years, and then it turns into something else, and it turns into something else, and it kind of keeps subverting your expectations. And I loved it. It was very taut, really funny, surprising, shocking, and had this really great sort of through line of there being an emotional truth to what the character was experiencing as well that I thought was really interesting.
I want to get to the personal aspect of the story, but first, why Skrillex? Because I loved the way your character looked in it as well, but I was also curious. I mean, I got the idea of like the LA musician and where he was coming from, but what about that person fascinated you?
Well, it was Toby and I used to talk about like the character quite a lot before I spoke to Elijah, and Skrillex was always there just because of the imagery was quite strong, and he's such a character. But I remember seeing these interviews with him, and it was very quiet, and he was just kind of like this regular. And I was knowing that we couldn't have a very broad caricature for the role, but he could have the look. But then we start peeling things back, put him through the ringer, and I knew Elijah was going to have this sort of emotional heft to be like this character that had empathy for, even though he's a bit of a douche at the setup. But because he goes through so much, we really wanted the audience to be on his side through the journey. So
it's so interesting. I was on his side even when he was a douche in the beginning, because he's solely just a douche to impress this man who is unimpressed by him. So all of his lying and everything he's doing is solely just to make this person love him.
Which we do. We all do a little bit of that sometimes. Yeah, especially for... And there's so much weight for this. It's 30 years, this reunion that's been building up, and he's got all this stuff that he wants to get off his chest to him, and he just meets a brick wall, kind of, and it's...
Did the Skrillex thing have anything to do with the title of the film is Come to Daddy, which doesn't have to be a reference to an Aphex Twin song, but some who know Aphex Twin would consider it that. Sure. Did you think that the character looking like Skrillex made him a kind of, in some way, also referential to Aphex Twin, or at least that world, or Skrillex is kind of a child of Aphex Twin in a way?
Yeah,
totally is,
absolutely. I mean, that was not purely intentional, but it was a nice sort of, tie-in. But I mean, there were other sort of like I was going through really extreme sort of like fashion shows from Tokyo and looking at all the sort of new Y3 line and looking at these sort of, we went shopping together and we were like, let's go try some things on. And
Looking for the most avant-garde stuff that we could find.
and then we saw what the budget was for the wardrobe, and we were like, "Hey, let's bring it down a little bit." And so we had, we came up with the great team on the film with a look throughout the whole thing. And he goes through quite a lot of costume changes through the film as he sort of gets degraded along the way. But Skrillex was always in the background. I think I did it to tease you
A little.
at the start. It was
That
like,
felt, like a tease, for sure.
This is the wig you'll be wearing. And it was like, but I think the look that we all came up with for you was...
Oh, yeah, but I still ended up with a weird bowl cut and a mustache and some very strange outfits.
So when you see that face and then you see the title "Come to Daddy," people might think it's a very different film, but it's not. It's a thriller with comedic aspects.
I love that he was kind of in this insecure situation right from the beginning, because whenever I see someone in an outfit like that out on the street, I think to myself, that is the most confident person in the world, that they can walk around looking like this.
Yeah. And not without a care in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Without thinking like, okay, everybody's staring at me. Or they have to enjoy that in
Totally.
some way. Yeah.
And it was really important that the first time you see Norval in this, juxtaposed against that environment that he's in, that he almost looks alien. So I think that first sort of off-the-boat look was kind of the most extreme, just so that we could kind of go, okay, this guy does not belong here. He is a fish out of water. And then he sort of starts to normalize throughout the experience of what he's put through.
And now, talk about the sort of the personal aspect of the movie, or where it stems from.
I don't want to bring down the house with a depressing story, but the genesis of the thing is that I was a producer for a very long time, but I started off making shorts when I was younger and thought I was going to be a filmmaker and this is what I want to do. And then my mum died and I was making a short about tumours, and it was like a horror short, and she had a tumour and astrocytoma and died, and I was like, oh my God, I can't make this thing. And I totally froze up for years, and then helped other people make their films and became a producer and started like living through their dreams. I was like, this is great, I love it. But then way deep down inside, I was like, I want to do something. But it took my dad dying to really like kick me, like propel me forward. And I had this very surreal experience of, he got embalmed and then came back for the kids to grieve with the body. So I spent 5 days in a house with his corpse and had a very emotional, cathartic experience, which was amazing. But I started to have like really weird, surreal dreams. And then during the day, there'd be like strangers turning up.
And you'd never met, right?
That I'd never met. Yeah, they were paying respects to my dad, and they had this convoluted history that before I sort of knew, like when I was young, I was like, do I really know? No, I don't know that about him. That's really unusual. And it's like, then my brain, how it works, is like, let's take that to a crazy place. And then so I ended up grieving and processing his death, and finally thought, I'm going to write to Toby, who was the co-writer of Greasy, and I'd been communicating with, and said, hey, I've got this skeleton idea, a structure of something I want to do, because I want to make something permanent as a sort of tribute to him of the type of films that we used to watch together when I was young, which were gritty, character-based thrillers.
Like, name one.
Well, anything with Oliver Reed in it, basically, from the UK. But, Ipcress File, Get Carter, those sort of solid British thrillers. So, and I grew up watching all those sort of films with him. And then so this whole film, at the end of the day, was like, I just needed to be happy knowing if I sat down with him and we watched this thing, he would be in hysterics. And going through the whole emotional roller coaster that I hope audiences go through it with it. So, because he had a really pitch black sense of humor.
Yeah.
So
I know.
you can probably tell from how the film goes.
No, but I have a dad like that too. I grew up watching Goodfellas like all the time, like as a child. Like come in, they're gonna kick Billy Bat's face in.
Yeah,
the best part. Okay. Yeah.
Spider.
The best.
Yeah, it really was great. I'm curious. You're sitting as a genre filmmaker and as a genre writer. I mean, I think you would proudly consider yourself that.
I wouldn't say I'm a writer at all, but I know writers. But
a genre filmmaker.
But a genre filmmaker, yeah. So I've produced a lot of films that are kind of cult films that end up with a real loyal following. Things like Turbo Kid and
Housebound
and the ABCs of Death. And so I that's my background. I sort of love that, but I didn't want this to sort of be something that's plays to those expectations and those beats. So wanted to have a very hybrid style film, and so I was just happy that Toby came up with such a crazy, great script where it chicanes all the time when you think it's going to go this way, and then.
Well, when you are having these surreal nightmares and you're in the house with your father's embalmed body, you start thinking that this could be a great idea or a great scenario for a movie?
It wasn't right then. I just had weird dreams about other things, and then I'd go down because growing up as a movie kid, obsessed kid, you're always supposed to talk to the corpse, right, and get things off your chest that you should have said when they were alive. But when you go down and actually do that,
Weird.
late at night, and there's a dead body there, and you try to talk to it, it's really kind of spooky and strange. And so, so that was all happening at the same time. But then it came to me, the idea of the film came to me later on. So it was a few weeks after. It wasn't right then during, hey, looking at the corpse and like quickly, I'm going to make a movie about this. So
No, I'm just wondering if quite quickly you were able to sort of wrap this personal experience in the box of a genre or an idea for a film, because oftentimes a thriller is very much like a comedy in a way. You need to have a kind of, as much as this doesn't fit very clearly into a box, it still is a thriller, and it's not a grieving...
No, to be honest, if I tried to make that film that was a true grieving process about my father dying and working with a writer, I would have botched it completely, because I'm not that person to make that film as a first film. I feel way more confident within the genre and growing up, knowing inherently every type of sort of film in the genre world, and so I just felt confident to be able to insert that personal material inside this genre film, instead of trying to make this, to do like something with heavy pathos and about fathers and sons. I want those sort of triggers to be in there, but it was really about moments for me that won't mean much to other people that are in the film that actually resonate with me a lot more than other people. And I'm sure, like, when you do films, there's moments that connect with you that no one else will probably ever connect with as well. So
I'm sure as an actor, so much of that is on the cutting room table, I bet, often, where you watch a movie that you're in and you think, oh, there are all these moments that I felt like I did a great job, or like this was a great moment on set, or this had happened, but fine, the movie is great as it is, but that didn't make it in.
Oh, that's definitely true. Yeah, and moments where you think, that is definitely a thing as an actor, where you have these highs that aren't necessarily reflected on the outside, that you're experiencing something in the moment that feels really great, but yeah, maybe it does end up on the cutting room floor and doesn't necessarily project the way you think, but it felt really great. So yeah, that does happen, I suppose.
The actor, forgive me for getting his name, who plays your father.
Stephen McHattie.
Yeah. What was it like working with him? He's wild.
Oh man, he's great and intimidating.
Really?
Yeah.
So he's not far from the character in the movie.
Well, I mean, on set, and I think that there was probably a bit of that was him being the character and sort of getting into the vibe of who this person was, in fairness. But he's a very sweet guy, but a man of few words, which just can be intimidating in and of itself. Someone that can sort of comfortably stand there and look at you and not say anything. And it's, gets me nervous.
Are you the type of actor who likes to talk about a scene a lot before you start shooting?
Not necessarily. If it's
not
there,
in this situation.
Yeah, not necessarily. Like if it's something that feels organic to what we're about to experience, great. But if it doesn't feel that the other actor needs it, I'm okay with not having a big discussion. And with him, the beautiful thing about the dynamic between Norval and his dad is that none of that had to really be. It was better for me not to have a lot of conversations with Stephen because of how put off Norval is and how on his back feet he is trying to understand who this person is and why he's treating him the way that he's treating him. So in a way, it was great for me to kind of be a little bit naturally intimidated by Stephen, because it sort of played into that dynamic organically.
What's it like making a film that I feel like 2/3 of the movie can't be in the trailer?
I know. It's difficult. It's
Well, yeah, I mean, my background's marketing films as well, so it's going to be a nightmare. Because
but even talking about it, I mean, we can talk
hard.
about the first act.
Yeah, we talk, and then
And allude to
really
what
hard to it's going to be interesting to see how people talk about the film once they see it, and if they like. For me, it's so rare to be surprised with movies these days because we're just bombarded constantly. Like you have 500 trailers for these big films that just reveal everything. So
Everything.
Everything.
So many trailers. I saw like 3 trailers today. I was like, that is the whole movie.
yeah,
I know.
It's always with these small human movies as well that like would be really nice to see from beginning to end, but it's like for some reason they feel the need to show you that like they get back together in the end and work everything
it's
out.
nervousness though.
I-
It's
it's
like
fear-
there's so much
it's-
money riding on it
it's
that they
acting out of
have
fear.
to give it all. It's fear based. Where hopefully we'll have a release where it's a lot smarter and the audience is aware that what you're trying to do and. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think from a trailer perspective, there's a way to tease out what happens at the end of the film, or in the second and third act, without really giving anything away.
Yeah, that's true. There are
Focus
images
a little
that
bit more on what's happening to him, and not necessarily it being contextualized.
Yeah.
You know.
But going back to the fear-based trailer marketing for just a second. I know this is tangential.
Sure.
But I am curious what you think about this because especially with smaller movies, people have a hard time marketing them and getting people to see them in the theater. Yet all of the trailers reveal everything about the movie, thereby making it there's no surprise for the audience.
Well, what happens, I mean, 'cause when you talk to distributors, and I obviously haven't worked on things like the Avengers, but on a lower level, what happens is that and there's proof to this and there's data to it, that the cinephiles, those who are really into the film already, know everything about it, and they're not worried about being spoiled. I know
They're going to see it no matter
they're
what.
going to see it no matter what. And the other people, it doesn't lock into them. They witness a trailer, but those key moments that super fans remember, and it's like, oh, it was all ruined in the trailer. Apparently, general audiences don't take in that type of information as well as those who are going to see it anyway.
Oh, that's
so that's the line of thought, is that they're going to forget by the time they get to the cinema and they're inside the movie. But I don't
it's
find.
so
But also,
simple.
people like to be reminded of things. Like when you see a comedy trailer, they show like the zingers, and then when you're in the movie watching it, and they've seen the zinger 5 times as a trailer, they still laugh like hyenas when they see the line on screen. I shouldn't talk about audiences braying donkeys or hyenas, but
Get in here, you hyenas! Eat this slop up.
I don't know.
So
I
we're
just-
serving fine cuisine, obviously, and so yeah, a more distinguished palate.
Well, it's frustrating that there's not more of an artful approach to trailers, because I think some of my favorite trailers are not story-based trailers. They're almost musical or staccatic. Like one that comes to mind was, is it A Simple Man, the Coen brothers
Oh, yeah.
film? It was rhythmic, and they would repeat things that would happen in the trailer frequently to a rhythm and a beat. That was just so rad. It didn't tell you anything. All you knew about that movie was it's a guy who's in duress and he's constantly at odds with the people he's encountering. That's all you knew. You had no other context. And then this really kind of arresting, rhythmic approach to the trailer that was antithetical to what we're expecting from most trailers, but grabs you because of the nature of it in and of itself. Does that make sense? Rather than it telling you, this is the movie, there's an aspect of the movie, but this is an entirely different approach. I just think those would be more interesting. Like if you're having difficulty marketing a movie, take a more artful approach rather than just trying to, like, I don't know, throw the baby out with the bathwater or throw everything into a trailer to try and entice everybody, i.e. the entire story.
Unless your movie is about a baby being thrown out with
Maybe the
bathwater.
bathwater. Well, in that
I
case,
think of like the most recent
Save it.
Tarantino trailer that just came out, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, revealed barely anything.
right.
But they have the like good fortune of having like Leo and Brad Pitt
Sure.
and like 9th film by Quentin Tarantino.
And great music cues.
And great music cues and Margot Robbie and
Yeah.
someone looking like Charles Manson.
But there's nothing contextually for you
exactly.
to hold on to.
Yeah.
Nothing.
And yet
But
it
you're
has,
like, sign me up.
of course.
But that's, yeah.
Elijah, I complimented you on this in the green room, and I really mean it. Like, at a certain point in your career, it felt like you were very comfortable with what your taste was, and you wanted to sort of mainly follow through on that. And that doesn't mean that you don't take chances within who you play or the types of characters that you play, but you're very committed to producing, starring in, and getting a certain kinds of films made. And you just said, that's just my taste. What has that been like for you, or what was that decision like? Was it a decision?
I don't know that it was conscious. I think in retrospect, there was maybe a galvanizing of an understanding of what I wanted to do as an actor and also now as a producer, where it kind of was, I realized what my taste was and what I wanted to pursue and what mattered to me most.
Do you remember when that was or what was going on or anything? Because you've been acting since you were a child and you've been in all sorts of different types of movies.
I don't really know. It feels like it's over the last 10 to 15 years. I think, honestly, truthfully, going to Fantastic Fest in Austin, meeting the folks that I've met there, sort of forging the relationships with filmmakers and producers in that genre community had a huge influence on me, both as a producer and as an actor. So a lot of things kind of came out of that organically. But I think, I don't know. I don't know that there was a conscious decision in regards to there being a shift, like having been on a certain path, getting off that path to get onto this, if that makes sense. It was more just, well, I want to be a part of things. And this has been a mandate for a long time. I just want to be a part of things that I believe in creatively. And that can be anything. It can take any shape or form, and more often than not, it tends to be genre, primarily because those are the films and the filmmakers and the writers that are taking the most risks. I'm just interested in being a part of something that doesn't feel familiar, that feels slightly different from anything I've seen before. And those are the movies that I love the most anyway, as a viewer.
Do you feel that maybe the term genre and the overuse of it is part of the problem as well? That we seem to be bundle all these films up instead of actually just because you've got these massive films that people can't put into these simple categories because they try to do, they're ambitious, and they came up with that horrible term, elevated.
Elevated horror.
Kind of
Elevator core?
horror.
Elevated horror.
Oh, elevated horror.
Yeah.
It
I
all
also
comes
like
from
elevator core.
Elevated
Elevator
core. It's a new type of
Dude, that's
hardcore music. Yeah.
That's a gnarly
Claustrophobic,
subgenre.
Yeah. What is elevated horror? What is that supposed to
Well,
That
it was
means
bandied-
good.
It was bandied about for a long time in reference to horror movies that took their subject matter seriously, i.e. a good horror movie, rather than it being a B-level horror movie. But people who love horror just know that those just mean that they're good horror movies. Right. But it is interesting. The industry is funny in the sense that it does question occasionally the people that, like the actors or actresses that take chances and jump off their normal path. They often get a lot of questions of, why are you suddenly doing these movies? Well, they're just following their interests. And it just happens to be slightly different than what people are expecting from them. But like Robert Pattinson's a great example of that. Someone who was on a really specific path based on a franchise that was huge. And man, his choices are the dopest ever.
And it sounds like someone we know.
But it's just some. I mean, Anne Hathaway's doing a similar thing too. I remember when she was doing press for what was Nacho's film? Colossal. People were asking her about the choice to do this, and she was just like, I like these kinds of movies, and Nacho's a great filmmaker.
I happened to stumble across Cosmopolis. I was in a hotel this past weekend, and Cosmopolis, the Cronenberg movie, which was Pattinson's first foray out of Twilight.
Yeah.
And I was watching it. It's DeLillo, it's Cronenberg, it's entirely in a limo for the most part. And it was like, what a fucking brave move
So fucking
this
crazy.
was.
Yeah.
It is literally a play in a limo about high finance.
Yeah.
And weird DeLillo-esque surrealisms. And no one got it when it came out.
know.
They were like, oh, nice try, Robert Pattinson, buh. And it was like, this is a really brave thing for this guy to do. He's just walking off one of the most successful franchises in the world.
Totally.
And you kind of did that too, not to turn this back on you, but with Lord of the Rings, one of the most successful franchises, and you're like, I'm going to go do these things that I really like.
And I would rather do that than, because I think it's
Not to say you didn't like Lord of the Rings.
Thank
it's
you.
not the same sort of
No.
franchise as Twilight.
No, I mean, look, if there was another, Lord of the Rings trilogy around, that'd be great. But I think in my opinion, after doing that, just for me, it felt foolhardy to try and chase the dragon, as if I was going to try and find another franchise or keep upping the ante. That was an insane thing to follow up. So at that point, all I wanted to do was primarily work on small things, because I was in New Zealand for 16 months, but also just to work on things that I believed in and not try and strategize a career. I just want to work on good things.
Is this a terrible time to talk about the Come to Daddy franchise?
The prequel that we have in the works?
We have some questions in the audience. Who has a question?
Hi, how are you?
That is awesome. Is your name Billy?
It's not. No, I'm afraid.
What is that from?
It's just a brand.
I love it.
You can buy it online. I'll send
That's
you a link.
great.
It's fine. Hi, how are you?
Hi.
Well, I was basically wondering, you've been an actor for a long time, and I'm a huge fan, by the way.
Thanks.
But I was wondering what your process is like on creating a character, and how's that changed from being a child actor to where you are now? And is it a collaborative process with the director of this movie, for example?
Yeah, I think it always is somewhat of a collaboration because the director has, he or she has some vision in regards to what that character should be. And so there is a consultation between that person and what's on the page and then what's also in my head. I think it's evolved. It's evolved as I've evolved. You know, through my own life experiences, I don't know that I could have played this character the same way that I played it now had it been 10 to 15 years ago. That's just life experience and growing. But the process remains largely the same in regards to just the beats that I take. Reading the script a lot, over-preparing. Preparation's huge. And just having a sense of the truth of who that person is and getting to the core of that. And once I understand what that is, it then becomes a fluid process on set. And a certain amount of, a great deal of preparation, but also the ability to be malleable to where I can react to anything that's happening, react to the other actors, and sort of, you know, take the character places that I hadn't anticipated.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Gloria Jules,
Hi.
and The Lord of the Rings is the best movie ever made.
Oh,
Me and my daughter
Wonder
can
Daddy's
both
pretty
agree
good.
on that.
what's that?
Me and my daughter, we both agree on that.
Oh, that's
That's
awesome.
the only
How old's your
thing.
daughter?
She's 20,
Cool.
so she would be here, but she's on vacation.
Where's she on vacation?
Boston,
On vacation in Boston?
yeah.
Can't you tell? Wasted?
My question is,
You're from around here though.
yeah, I'm from Brooklyn.
Don't,
Brooklyn.
don't listen to the Kiwi. That's not my thing.
Well, pretty much you kind of answered my question already. I was gonna ask you what are some tips for someone trying to break into acting?
Ooh.
So you mentioned a little bit when he asked. So if you have any other suggestions?
I think we live in a really exciting time in regards to the ability for anyone to be a creator. So I think it's a lot of hard work. I think perseverance, find a group of people that want to do the same thing. So be it, you know, other friends that are actors or an acting class that you can kind of meet a community around what you do. That would be really helpful. Sometimes people make their own short films. People put themselves on tape. You know, it's not the easiest thing to quote unquote break into, but I think because we're all afforded the basic ability to kind of create, I just would recommend that people create their own content and sort of see where that can take them and just do and live life alongside it, sort of not making that your only thing that you're doing, but it's be prepared for, I don't know, it's hard.
Sounds great.
Break-in is such an interesting phrase that I think is used all the time. I was reading this article about Keanu Reeves recently, and he was telling a story about how he was on set with Anthony Quinn in 1991 on some movie. I don't remember what movie it was. And he was a young actor, and he was watching Anthony Quinn on the phone with his agent losing out on a role and like hustling for the next role and what director he had to talk to. And he was like, this is an 81-year-old legend who I am watching right now.
Still hustling
The same way that I'm hustling with my agent. Like, it never really ends, no matter what success level you're at. You're still trying to find the job or get the movie made.
It's so true. And the very nature of being an actor is you're a free agent. So you are living job to job. Unless you're creating your own content, which most actors aren't, you know, you are at the mercy of what's available to you. So you're right. You're totally right. It never really ends. You never really know what's around each bend. That's also what's exciting about it too.
One more question right here. Hi.
With all the success you've had, do you have any big dream role that you really would love to play, and any big project maybe you want to create also?
Oh man, I honestly don't. I don't have a specific role or character in mind. I weirdly don't think as an actor, if that makes sense. I think more from the perspective of a filmmaker. I'm a little bit more drawn to filmmakers specifically, or really interesting scripts, or collaborating on an interesting idea, rather than it specifically being driven by a desire to play a specific kind of person. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of filmmakers I would love to work with. Every year I see films from new filmmakers that astonish me. I'm a huge Yorgos Lanthimos fan. You've seen Dogtooth is great, and The Lobster. There's so many extraordinary films, and we go to film festivals all the time. And so that is what I think about most. It's just people I want to work with, worlds I want to be a part of. As a facilitator, I just want to be a part of things that people are doing that are creative and interesting.
Lanthimos is crazy.
He's
just
fucking awesome.
nominated for 8 Academy Awards.
The Favorite
and I was
is
just
so good too.
What the hell? How did this happen?
Yeah.
I mean, The Favorite is amazing.
It's
I
incredible.
love it, but the fact it being nominated for like Academy Awards to me was mind-blowing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, I love Come to Daddy. Congratulations,
thanks so
Ant, on
much.
your directorial
Thank you.
debut. It premieres tonight at the Tribeca Film
Tonight.
Festival.
We're seeing it
And I
tonight.
imagine there's more screenings as well.
Yeah, it's screening.
And Sunday, right?
Yeah, 3 days.
Yeah.
And then there's a gap, and then there's a 4th screening as well.
It's so crazy. It's such a fun movie. I think people are going to have an amazing time at the premiere.
I hope so.
premiere
Yeah,
tonight.
I think it's going to be fun.
Give a huge round of applause for Elijah Wood and
Thanks, guys.
Ant Timpson.